you are comfortable with, and then you can be more productive in the long run. Probably it's something like our ability. We cannot have ability in every field, so you have to accept that at some point, and you have to kind of exploit the ability that you have to the maximum extent, so that you can produce the most from out of that. So that is quite important. You have to think yourself about what are the areas you are comfortable to work in. Then, so once you think about all those things, okay, how novel the work you are going to do, what is going to be the perceived impact of the research that you are going to perform, are you comfortable with the research that you are going to perform, all these are fine. Then at the end of the day, is the problem worth solving at the PhD level? So that is another important question you should ask. You should choose a problem which is worthy to solve at the PhD level. You don't want to solve a problem which like one BTech student might be able to solve, or like in some cases 10 plus 2 student can be able to solve given proper guidance. It should have certain intellectual content that you would yourself feel happy about after solving that problem. So these are the point I think you should keep in mind while choosing a research topic for PhD and choosing your PhD supervisor. Be careful, be very careful about these topics. And well, there is no hard and fast rule. Like these are the points you should have, you should remember. There are many points which might come across at different in your mind at different points, but these are some of the points that came to my mind while I was thinking about it. Now let us quickly try to move to the next stage. So once you have kind of chosen your supervisor, you have started your research, you have progressed to some extent after, let's say, 1.5 years, then you have to think about publishing or disseminating that research outputs to different medium. So the different mediums we have already talked about, like journal, conferences, book chapter, etc. Now among them, we are trying to focus on the journal papers here, which is probably the most uh, which is probably the most uh, just a second. um, which is probably the most impactful, or or the representative of your academic output. So let us talk about the journal paper and choosing appropriate academic journals. Now, if you think about journals, there are two different kinds of broad category of journals. One is the kind of broad science and engineering journal, and second is the area specific journal. You might have come across these categories. So by broad science and engineering journal, I mean uh, journals like Nature, or Nature Scientific Report, Nature Communication, Science Advances, all these kinds of journals. So these are broad journals. There is no particular area in which they don't they they are focused on, but they attract papers from different domains of science and engineering. So this is one category of journal, and another category of journal is area specific journals. That is, their domain is small, but they are normally uh, read and published by people in a small group of areas. For example, you might have heard of Journal of Solids and Structures. So this is a journal where uh, people from the area of solid mechanics, structures, and to some extent material science, they come and publish. So what happens is that both of these journals are category of journals are good, but in many cases, what happens? Uh, Broad science and engineering journals may have higher impact factor. Uh, in that sense, you can think about uh, getting published in these journals may be difficult at times, because many people from different areas are competing to get published there. And also, even if you get published, at some point it is, the people from your own field may not be able to find that paper at the end, because the paper might be lost in that broad category of journal. But if your result is interesting enough and it deserves to be published, to be disseminated in a wider category of uh, scientists or researchers, then you could go for broad science and engineering kind of journals, like different nature journals or science journal, or there are different Wiley journals. There are like broad aspects journal, and they will only accept paper in most cases when your result have like wide spectrum of relevance. So for example, you are working in a particular field, but you have to show in certain way that the results are relevant for a wide field of scientist and researcher. Even let's say you are working in the area of solid mechanics, so your result or your development should be able to demonstrate that even though you have worked in the area of solid mechanics, that is relevant to other fields, not only in solid mechanics, but let's say material science or structures, and to some extent biomaterials and all those fields. So you have to show that broad category of relevance. Then only you can publish in high impact broad science and engineering journal. But in case of area specific journals, what happens, their area is very focused, so they will look at the core technical content of your work, which is good in many places. So let's say you have written a paper with 80 to 100 equations. In those cases, broad science and engineering journals may not be interested. So you have to, it's a good idea to go for this area specific journal where they will actually value your work, and that the work will be read and judged by the people from your field. So these are different kinds of considerations you need to think about. The second thing is, uh, well, at this stage, don't publish in a journal which is not SCI or SCI expanded indexed. So this is very important. And so this is one of the indexing criteria you should ensure when you are in the science and engineering field. And ranking of a journal is also important. So you might think that how do I know, even if some journal is SCI or SCI indexed, then even in that case, the journal may not be highly ranked within the specific field. So there is a ranking system of journals available that gives you quarter of journal. So whether a certain journal falls in the first quarter of that particular category. Let's say you are talking about materials. So in materials, you can find out the list of the journal which falls in the first quarter of the journals. So that they are called Q1 journal. The journals in the materials field which falls in the second quarter, they are called Q2 journals. So there are 4 such quarters: Q1, Q2, Q3, Q4. If you search in Google, you'll find this information. So you should be, so like it may so happen that a particular journal that may come within Q1 range in case of materials, but it may not come in Q1 range in case of solid mechanics and structures. So you have to think about which field you are working in, and in that field you have to think about the journal and in which category that journal fall. Accordingly, you should choose the journal, choose a particular journal. So these are the 2 criteria you should think of while choosing a journal. I mean, journal that will give you some, when you are published, you should feel proud of your work. So you should publish in such journals. And another thing is impact factor. You all know about this. This is something many people will say many things, that impact factors are not important, this, that. But from my personal experience, I can say you that impact factor is something you cannot and should not ignore. Normally what happens is people might say, okay, some impact factor are not representative of the quality of the published work in a journal and all those things. But at the end, if you try to publish in high impact journals, you will realize yourself that publishing is high impact journal is proportionally difficult as the impact factor goes up. So even if you are talking about high impact journals, it's even difficult to get the paper reviewed. In most cases, what will happen is you submit the paper, editor will have a look, and it is rejected. So in high impact journals, if your paper goes to review, that itself is a big achievement. So there are these differences, though you shouldn't be only driven by impact factor, but impact factor is something you should not and cannot ignore altogether. So you should keep in mind. But again, when you are, for example, if you are reading a paper from a high impact journal, it doesn't give you the guarantee that the paper is very good. But when you get published in a high impact journal, then at the end, when you are going to look for a job, or maybe after PhD, whatever you do, you will be appreciated. Keep that in mind. Now, well, you have to choose an appropriate journal based on area of research, nature of contribution, perceived impact of the work, and presentation. So area of nature research, you have already talked about. You have to think in which area you have worked, like materials, solid mechanics, structures, control, all those things. So you have to look for that particular area. Then nature of contribution. Nature of contribution is quite important. Now, in today's world, many of the works are interdisciplinary. For example, you can work in an area where you are developing some machine learning based solid mechanics algorithm. So you have to think where the novelty of your research lies, whether it is solid mechanics or machine learning. If you are developing some novel machine learning algorithm, okay, then you can submit to some computational journal. But if your actual contribution in the area of solid mechanics and machine learning is being utilized for augmentation of the solid mechanics part, then you might go for the solid mechanics journals. So you have to think in terms of in which area your contribution actually lies, or where the novelty of the work actually lies. Based on that, you choose the journal. Then perceive impact of the work. If you think that the work has high impact and you can actually demonstrate that in the journal, that these are the impact, perceived impact, then you should go for high impact journals. Or even in that case, it's a good idea to go for these broad science and engineering journals that we discussed about. And presentation is quite important. Many people don't take this seriously, but when you are going for high impact journal, presentation is the first impression that your journal makes. So when the editor looks at your paper for the first instance, he'll look through the entire paper, and if it is not presented well in the format of the journal, then it is rejected automatically. So you should be taking care of the presentation right from the beginning. Appropriate formatting as for the journal requirement, as I said, and try to use latex if you are comfortable with. I don't want to force you on that, but using latex has its own advantages in terms of formatting, managing of references, and many other things. If possible, use latex and adopt appropriate reference management tools, and take special care of quality of images if you want to publish in high impact journals, because images are the things that people look at first. So your images should be catchy, at the same time meaningful. Okay. Okay. So another couple of points I just want to highlight. Uh, Use Grammarly or other methods, so that there is absolutely no error in your writing. So grammar error or spelling mistakes in this age of in today's time, they are absolutely not acceptable. And these are something you might have thought. So whoever has already submitted a couple of paper might have experiences that you submit a paper to your supervisor, and the supervisor actually keeps that paper with him for months. One of the reasons I can tell you is that if the paper is not properly written, or if the supervisor has to sit down and correct every sentence, then it is sometimes really irritating. So don't burden your supervisor with that. Let the supervisor do his job, right? Write a couple of sentences at the beginning and ends that gives you the impact. Not have him correct every sentence, or grammar or sentence of your paper. And another thing I have noticed is that many of you, not all, but many of the students that I have worked with, some of them, they don't read the entire paper before passing it to their supervisor, which is not a good practice. Try to read the entire paper more than once. before passing it to a supervisor. Then you, every time you read, you will find that you are actually correcting many sentences, or you are actually improving. So that helps improving the journal paper to a significant extent. And when you are writing the journal papers, try to highlight these aspects at every instance, or every opportunity that you get. You should try to highlight the impact of the work, right, at the abstract, introduction, conclusion, novelty, how it is novel, and the intellectual contribution at different places. So you have to think about, you have to talk about why, how this is difficult to achieve the results that you have achieved, or how it is intellectually relevant within your research domain. And we have already talked about the issue of desk rejection. So this is something which will bother if you are going for high impact journals. When the impact factors you are looking for starts becoming more than 9, 10, or like that, then you will see that you get lots of desk rejection. In that case, what you should do is you should try to write your cover letter properly. Cover letter is very important. You should try to explain why the work is important, and all these aspects, all these three aspects: impact, novelty, and intellectual contribution. And also, you shouldn't lose hope, because in case of high impact journal, what happens is they get a lot more paper than they can actually publish. So they try to keep on rejecting the paper if it is not attractive enough for them. So yeah, if it is rejected from one journal, you have to go for another journal. That's the solution. Now, last couple of words, I'll quickly try to reiterate. I have probably talked about this already. So, first thing is quality over quantity. In your PhD, always try to maintain the quality. You should want to publish in the best journals of your field, or in the best general journals that we have talked about. But quantity is also important. It's not that you publish very less number of quality paper, and you will be regarded very highly. It's not that. You have to maintain a balance between quality and quantity. So you have to publish as many as paper possible, maintaining the quality, because your overall impact will be quality multiplied by quantity in a gross sense. So keep this in mind. Many people will tell you many things, but at the end, when you are going for the next job, or faculty positions, or postdoc position, or other things, this is what will be judged on. So when you are publishing, so this is like a continuous process. Try to do your research, publish, think about it, get involved in the sense that after you publish a paper, it's not the end of the job. You should make sure that most number of people actually read the paper, and you might try to seek their, if obviously you don't want to disturb anyone, but if someone you personally know, you can reach to them, and you can try to get their uh, kind of feedback on your paper. So this is quite important. And it is always a good idea to interact with your fellow researchers in your research group, in your department, at your institute, or even other institute. Try to collaborate and expand the domain of your research. This is quite important. While we are doing PhD, that is fine, you are working in a single problem, but if you have some idea about other fields as well, your fellow students, in which your fellow students are working, then that helps you quite a lot at the later stage of your career. So it's not that you are working in a particular area of materials or structures or whatever. You cannot explore other areas of materials and structures, because you are not going to spend your life working in a single area. So it's always a good idea to collaborate and expand your domain of research, and that is only possible when you speak to your fellow researchers from your institute, or from even outside the institute. Even getting a couple of papers outside your PhD research is a nice idea. If you can do it, it's quite good. And obviously, you should obtain explicit permission from your supervisor, because in many cases your supervisor may not like it. So you have to convince your supervisor, or you have to involve your supervisor in that work as well. Try to be try to be independent as much as possible. So the idea is when you start writing the first paper, your supervisor might handle to some extent. He might show you how to write a paper, how to make a plot, or even how to derive an expression. But from the second, third, and paper onwards, that handholding, that the degree of that handholding will be is expected to be less and lesser. And at the end, you should be at the end when you are publishing probably the last work of your PhD, you should be able to do it at your own. That's the expectation. So that when you go out from the institute, you are kind of self-reliant, and you can do your own research, right? Another aspect I want to mention is that many of you neglect this from the beginning of your PhD, that well, we are at the early stage of your research career, and you don't want to really have web presence, but web presence is important. You are now, remember that you are not, so research community is not based on a country, it's like a worldwide community. So the earlier you start having some web presence, the better it is. So people abroad will notice you, people within our country will notice you, so that it will be helpful for you to get further opportunities when you while doing your PhD or even after doing your PhD. Use social medias like ResearchGate. These are quite uh, helpful. You can keep track with uh, other researchers, Twitter, etc., to follow research activities and connect with researchers and professors, etc., and let the world know about your research when it is published. So this is very important. Do some publicity, that doesn't harm at the end. Okay. So these are some of the points I wanted to mention. Uh, I am open to any question if you want, and best wishes for your PhD research that you are going to undertake. I wish you publish many papers with highest quality.
Thank you so much, sir, for a valuable presentation. So the stage is open for the questions. So please ask your questions directly, or you can put your questions in the chat box in the Zoom.
Hello, sir. Thank you, sir, for this really very nice presentation.
Yes.
So my question is, could you elaborate a little more on the web presence? So by the term web presence, do you mean having our own web page or what else?
Yes, everything. So whatever you can do. I mean, when you have published one or two papers, let's say after first year or second year, why not have your own website? So if someone searches you in Google, they should be able to find your profile. So that's how you get recognized in long term. And as you grow older in the academic community, people will recognize you. So it's always good to start right at the beginning. Have your own website. I know IIT Kanpur probably offers, IIT Kanpur and most IITs would offer you to have your domain in your in the domain of that particular IIT, or even you can have a Google website, Wix, Waves. There are so many free websites available if you don't want to buy yourself. So this is one thing. Another thing is be active on ResearchGate. This is not only for sharing your own research, but it is a good platform to, when you follow people who are working in your field. So whenever they publish some research, you can have a look at the research and keep track on what is happening around you. So these are good things to do. So whenever you interact, so this also gives you to interact with people. You interact with some professor, maybe later you can go for a postdoc to that particular professor, or when you apply for a faculty position somewhere, then that particular professor might have heard of your name vaguely, or someone that helps.
Thank you, sir.
Yep. Yeah, any other question, please feel
Yes,
free.
sir. Sir, there is one question in the chat box.
Mhm.
Sir, what is your view on publishing a review journal during the literature review stage?
Well, my own take is a little different. I know these are topics which differ from professor to professor, or even researcher to researcher. But what I think is good is to publish a literature review paper at the end of your PhD. So then what happens is you already have the literature review part that you probably have written for your PhD thesis, and you have you have a grasp of the overall field that you are working on. So then when you write the literature review paper, then you can actually give certain comments, whether the meaning of writing a literature review is that you can pass some comments on other works, so you are actually reviewing the works. So that is sometimes quite important. Once you have that kind of grip to the work, or that kind of understanding to the work, then only it's a good idea to literature review paper. So what I suggest personally is to write the literature review paper at the end of your PhD. So that might result in a better quality of review paper. But you can always try at the beginning as well. But I think it is better to do that at the end, once you are confident about your field, once you know that you have known most of the things in the field that you are working on. And in the review paper you can also include your own work. Why not? So your contribution should also be highlighted.
Thank you, sir. Sir, there is one another question. Can you please elaborate the H index and I10 index in the Google
Right.
Scholar?
You should have very very good understanding about these things. So H index is something like, let's say someone has published 50 papers so far. Okay, now amongst those 50 papers, if he has like X number of papers with minimum X citation, so then his H index is X. That means if he has published at least 10 papers with 10 citation, his H index will be 10. So this is a very kind of tricky index. As you go high and high, then it becomes like more difficult to increase your H index. So you can easily go from 5 to 10, but from going from 10 to 15 is more difficult. 15 to 20 is even more difficult. It's something like this. So H index is a very good you know indication. Well, people might think that many people will talk about many things, that H index may not be representative of the actual quality of research and all those things. But uh, amongst the indices those are available for measuring quality of research, H index is probably the best. You cannot include everything, and in many cases people don't say numbers don't lie, something like that. So you can think about that. And I10 index, there is something which Google Scholar have introduced. So this is, I think, Google Scholar specific more in most cases, and H index is the most used one. I10 is something, is the number of papers that you have for which you have more than 10 citations. So that is something called I10 index. Uh, so that also gives you a kind of idea about how your papers are getting cited. So these are the two things. And there are other things that you should also keep in mind, that different uh, citation engines, they give these citations differently. For example, Google Scholar is a little bit generous. So Google Scholar kind of accepts many citations which are not accepted by Web of Science. So what happens is, normally you'll find, if you look at someone's H index, I10 index, or total citation, you'll see that the numbers in Google Scholar are relatively on the higher side compared to Web of Science and all those indices. But whatever it is, I mean, they should be close normally, and you should look at both. And these days people kind of try to follow Google Scholar more, because it gives people more happiness since the numbers are on the higher side. Yeah, any other question? Is it understood, by the way?
Yes, thank you, sir.
So
Sir,
I
there-
have,
yes, please, please.
sir, I have recently completed my internship, and the guide I had in the organization, like not interested in publishing the research I have done, because he's busy with some other project. So he clearly said, so sir, should I go ahead like without involving him, or like should I independently? My
Well, this is a tricky situation. If you want to publish the paper independently, you should have explicit permission from that supervisor. So normally what happens is it happens with me also. So I get interns, and in many cases what happens is that uh, the supervisor may not be interested to publish that work, because the
Yes,
perspective of a supervisor and perspective of an intern are different. The supervisor
yes,
already has many papers. He may not care about another paper which may not have that much impact. But for the intern, if it is his or her first paper, then he or she is excited about it, and they want to publish it. So in
yes.
that case, if you don't converge that the supervisor wants to give his name to the paper and contribute, or significantly modify the paper, if he is not ready to do that, what you should do is you should speak to him clearly, and you should always take his permission before doing publishing
So
is independently. That is
I
important.
already spoke to him, and since like initially when I started with him, he was like, I'm not interested in doing this,
Mhm.
like for publication part. So for the whole research, he was there on the project. And now when like I'm saying let's do it, so he's like, do you do it on your own, like that? I don't know how what to do with that
Yeah,
attitude.
I think speak clear, talk to him clearly that I want to publish it, and if you want to be a part of it, then tell me, or otherwise I want to publish it, you should give me, you should let me do that. But whatever you do,
Yes.
inform him and take his permission. That is important. I am telling this because at the
Mhm.
end, if the work is published and you are very happy, then if someone wants, you can just write to the editor, and that might make a problem. So that is the worst case scenario. And ideally you shouldn't also do that. If you are working with somebody, you should take their permission before publishing. That is the moral or ethical part of it.
In past 2 months, so I don't know what to do. That's why I asked.
Yeah, I hope you get it published.
Okay, thank you, sir. So there is one question in PhD. What is the weightage of the conference paper and the journal paper? What is your opinion?
Look, you in most field, I mean, from field to field, it varies. For example, I know there are many conferences in computer science and those kinds of fields where getting a published in a conference or getting the paper accepted in a conference is very challenging. But that is specific to computer science and very specific fields. But if you are talking about other fields like mechanical, civil, aerospace, material science, uh, electrical, and all these fields, then journal paper is the ultimate goal for publication, and there is no comparison between publishing a journal paper and conference paper. You might have noticed this yourself. So you submit a conference paper, in most cases 99% cases it is accepted. So you should judge it by yourself. What is the how difficult it is to publish somewhere. So based on that, you can compare uh, what is its weightage in terms of when you are calculating something. So you shouldn't normally compare a journal paper and conference paper these days. uh, I mean, the purpose of journals or conferences have been totally differentiated. So journal paper is something which you communicate it in the form of a proper writing and everything. But in conference paper, most of the cases what happens is it's a platform for networking with your fellow researcher. That's how, when you are a little bit more experienced, that's how you use conference. And at the end of the day, whatever you have presented, you just write a couple of pages and publish it as a conference paper. That's how things are working these days. So you shouldn't compare a journal paper and the conference paper. Journal papers is what you should look for. So when you are counting something for accessing someone's research, then you should count the journal papers, not the conference papers. Conference paper is good at the beginning of your career to fill up of your CV, but once you are coming out of the PhD, nobody will look at what conferences you have published in most cases. They will only look at the journal papers.
Sir, one more question. Although it may sound silly, but I have seen that most of the times when I read paper, I find that the content of the abstract is kind of repeated in the conclusion section. So, from what is the difference between the contents of abstract and the conclusion section?
Right. Look, it depends. I mean, it depends from researcher to researcher how they write it. But what I follow, I can tell you in the when I'm writing a paper, I normally start from so it start in this order. I first so when I am thinking about a research paper, once the formulation and other parts are done, like coding and everything are done, so I would normally go on making the results, that is the plots. So once the plots are done, the figures are done, then I complete two sections. One is the formulation section, then the result and discussion section. Once these two sections are done, then I go to the introduction section. So introduction section should be written in such a way, so you talk about what other people have done briefly and what is needed to be done and what you are going to do in this particular research paper and how that is going to impact and all those things briefly. Then you come to the conclusion section. In the conclusion section, normally what you should do is you should briefly write what is being done in the, so when at the end of introduction section you are writing in this way that we are going to do this, going to do that, in that way. And at the end, in the conclusion section, you write this has been done, and so you are saying something like it is done in this paper and it is done in this paper, something like that. So you basically summarize what is being done or what is being proposed in the in that particular paper, and a couple of line about how this is going to be useful in industry and probably as well as in academia for further research and development. So that is how you write the conclusion section. In the abstract, it should be more general. So in the abstract, you should think about whatever you have written throughout the paper. You have to kind of write it in 200 to 250 sentences. So that starts with so first couple of line in the abstract, maybe why that particular research that you are pursuing in that paper or you are presenting in that paper, how this is important, why this is important, first one or two sentences. Then what you have done, one or two sentences, and how that is important or impactful, last one or two sentences. That's done abstract. So abstract is something basically you are summarizing the entire paper, while conclusion is something what you have done in the paper and then probably some future scope and all those things. So you have to think in that line.
Okay, thank you, sir.
I have a question. I'm a first year student at IIT Kanpur and I want to go into research. So, what would be your tips and things that I should do for the next 4 years?
So you are a first year BTech student.
Yes.
Okay, nice. So basically, what I would suggest is obviously you cannot ignore the core courses that is being offered by your department. That is very important. So besides that, try to get in touch with the professors with whom you think that the research area that you have in mind or whatever you like. In next 4 years, I can guarantee you that many things you will encounter and you will see that you like this field more, you like that field more. But try to get small internship if that is possible, even within the professors of the department. Go approach the professors, and I am sure that in most cases they will be happy to help you. They'll be happy to help you to give small research project or some part of the project that they are already pursuing, so you can contribute in that project, and in that process you gain the experience. And if you can, if it is possible, because I have already done that with one of my students, it may be possible in some cases when you may be able to work for some time on a particular topic, and being an undergraduate researcher, you can also write a paper. And when you are going to apply for PhD positions anywhere in the world, be it IITs, be it outside India, whatever it is, So that 1 or 2 paper will help you immensely in getting a position in the top universities.
Okay, thank you, sir. So there is one question. So there is a major concern globally across researchers on the monopolization of the research publications business. So what is your take on publication with the creative with this concern?
Look, I mean, this is kind of a controversial issue, I would say, but yes, there is a degree of uh, uh, monopolism to certain countries. But what we should do now is that since India as a country is coming hugely in research, and you would see that IITs, IISc, and many other, some of the NITs are coming hugely in research. If you think in terms of the research parameter itself, then IITs are not behind at all to any most global top ranked universities. So we are good at research, but what we lack is the publicity of our research, or publicity or the impact of our research in many cases. So we should do that more, and of course we should aim to carry out the highest quality of research and publish in the best journals. But this can only be tackled, I think, by publishing more and more in the top quality of journals. So we as Indians, I think we should try to publish as much as possible in the topmost quality of journals. And at certain point, I think it is also good, though it takes collective effort, collective and unbiased effort probably, we should try to have our own journal, which is uh, published from India. Now, if you look at most journals in Elsevier, Wiley, or the top brand that we try to publish, Nature, Science, they are, published from certain countries, either UK, USA, Netherlands. These are the top countries which publish most such top journals. So we should try to have such high impact journals published from India. Then you can probably control these things to a certain extent. You can publish an unbiased, you can have an unbiased channel for publishing research. But that needs, I think, concerted effort from the entire Indian academia, I would say. So in the long term, I'd like to see a couple of journals, high impact journals, getting published from India, and probably from some of the IITs maintained by.
Okay, thank you, sir. So there is one last question. Sir, what do you think about the publications with the computational work and the experimentation work? If there is a validation, if there is any validation required for the both of them, what will be the weightage?
Right. Look, I mean, it depends on what kind of work you are doing. If you are interested, you can do computational or analytical kind of work. I mean, there are two things. One is interest, and of course the ability, or the how comfortable you are in certain domain. Now, it is always good to have validation, experimental validation. Either you are doing computational work and doing some experimental validation, or you are doing mostly experimental work and you do some sort of computational validation. So if you can do both, then that is one of the best outcome. But even if in many cases you may not require to do that, or it is not necessary, because in many cases what happens is, even in computation, there could be different methods to do a single thing. For example, you can write a couple of equations to analyze a beam, or you can actually model that in a finite element software to analyze the mechanical response of a beam. So what you can do is you can perform the same analysis using the two methods, and you can show that, okay, the two methods compare well. So that is kind of validation, and this is widely accepted. So I mean, it depends on the kind of work you are doing. If the idea is very new and you want to get it published very soon, then you may not wish to carry out experimental work at the initial stage, and you can do this kind of validation, and that is absolutely fine. But if you are actually looking for some work which has already been published or the idea is out, then at the next stage you are looking in further depth of it, then you might go for experimental work. And that is equally true for experimental works as well. If you are good at experiment, you can do some pilot experiments kind of thing, and you can get some initial interesting results and try to validate by a small computational analysis if possible, and get that thing published. I mean, that is equally acceptable. I mean, there is no hard and fast rule for that, but what you should always try to make sure is you should always try to provide some sort of validation. That is important, be it experimental computational or different methods of computational analysis. Between different methods of computational analysis, any kind of validation is required. That gives you the confidence on the work. That is essential.
Okay, thank you so much, sir. So any other questions from audience?
Yes, please feel free to if you have any queries.
Sir,
Yes, one by one, please.
one question I have: how categorization of journals in Q1, Q2, and Q3 category is justified? Like sometimes journal in Q1 moves to Q2 and vice versa. Like journal of
Yes, that, yeah, I understood. I mean, look, these are nothing, you cannot judge the quality of science by numbers. That is true. But you have to do some quantification, right? Otherwise, how do you judge? So when you are talking about doing some quantification, then these are the ways that you can look at. And this is right that one journal which is in Q2 that might move to Q1 after a couple of years because the journal has done well in those years. It's not that if a journal is not doing good for last 2 years, it has to do perform in the same way for the rest of his life. It's not like that. It can perform better and it can move up, or if it performs worse than before, then it moves down. That's how journal qualities are controlled. So I think it's and if you look at, I mean, if you are going applying for positions abroad, then Q1, Q2, Q3, these journal quarters are very seriously taken, I would say. So even if you apply somewhere for, in some cases for postdoc position, you would see that you have to actually go to those sites, and you have to check the journals where you have to publish which category does it fall into. So you have to write Q1, Q2, and all those things. Many universities require that.
Okay, sir.
So these are taken seriously by some people, and I think there is certain degree of justification to it as well. Why not?
Like Journal of Applied Physics is very big journal, but right now it is in Q2. So
right, because there are other journals in physics which are performing better than JAP.
Maybe.
Right.
Yeah. Thank you.
So, there is question. If your work is noble, so you said that we don't have much references to give. So, like, how we can still give references, and where we can give references?
I mean, look, novel in the sense, I mean, let's say you are developing some kind of material or something, right? So you are using certain, even if the material is novel, the method that you are using to develop that material, that may not be novel. So in that case, you should give reference to the method that you are using more. Or maybe, that material is showing certain exotic kind of properties. If you have some other material which show those kind of properties or relevant properties, you could give those references. I mean, not exactly whatever you are doing, you should give reference to that. It's not like that. You should find relevant papers which are relevant from different angles, either from the method size or computational aspects that you are taking for developing certain product or material, whatever, or similar kind of metal, or the properties of the metal that you might have taken. You have to think. So you will find that there are different parts of a work for which you can give references. You give references for that.
Okay, sir.
Does it make sense?
Sir, actually, I am from management, so I can
Okay.
relate it.
Yes, yes. In management, I mean, you probably would be able to find different kind of areas which are not exactly same to what you are doing, but it is relevant to what you are doing. Then you have to kind of refer to those works, I think.
Sir, one more question. Like in conferences, is it possible to publish only literature review?
Yes, it is possible in certain conferences. Yes,
Okay.
I have seen papers, conference papers only on literature review.
Okay, sir.
Yes, any other question?
So I have another question, that is it necessary that the field of research that you are pursuing, you have to have a degree in that? Like the only, like, can I only write research papers in the core field?
No, there is no such rule.
So like it depends on the professor I'm approaching, right?
Yes, yes. I mean, the time of COVID is probably the best example. You would see that people coming from chemistry, people coming from mechanical, aerospace, everyone is writing a paper on COVID virus. So,
Yes.
I mean, there is no hard and fast rule. As long as you can contribute significantly to that field, you are, I mean, people are happy to accept it.
Okay, okay. Thank you.
Yeah, sir. Actually, I have one question.
Yeah.
So, actually, during PhD, whether we should concentrate on writing single author paper, means if it's single author means which will be co-authored with the supervisor, or we should concentrate on having collaborative papers which will have many authors, many co-authors.
I mean, look, it depends on what kind of work you are doing. There are certain kind of works where uh, many experimental part are involved, which needs help from many people. In those work, you can't help but giving names of more than 3-4 people.
Okay.
But in normal scenario, it is expected that people from your group, like you, maybe one of your colleague in your group and your supervisors, they are expected to be your co-authors. And I mean, look, personally, I don't feel there is any problem in giving someone else's name in a paper if he or she has contributed significantly, because collaboration is the kind of thing that is uh, widely accepted throughout the world now. Then why should we stay back?
Yeah.
But you should always keep in mind, if all of your papers are like uh, eight author or 9 authors in all papers in your CV, then that may not look good. So people might actually question you whether what is your contribution in the paper.
Okay.
So like up to 4-5 authors is absolutely fine.
All right, sir. Thank you.
And that also depends on the field in which you are working. So normally in case of chemistry, material science, biology, in all those fields, people tend to have more authors. While in aerospace, mechanical, civil, people have 3-4 authors maximum, or 5. So that depends on the field in which you are working as well.
Okay, sir. Thank you.
My
Yep.
question is similar to the previous one. Other than my guide and me, if I want to put some other name, so there is some criteria like distribution of credit for the co-authors.
Right, I understood your question. Uh, I mean, look, I mean, this distribution of co-author and all those things are normally not looked at such seriously in good institutes. I myself have never faced that. So where I have to calculate the credit based on my co-authors and all and give some number. I mean, outside India, it is never looked at, and even within India, my experiences are that if you are dealing with a good institute of the level of IITs, I have never face this kind of calculation based on your author, such kind of things. Like if you are first author, you get this much marks, second author, third author. I have never done that, never had to do this so far.
Okay,
Neither
actually,
in any application nor in any other like grant application or in other things. Yeah,
okay, sir.
you are saying something, I guess.
Yeah, I was saying that, like you said that during the experimental work you need to help to take a help from some other persons, but during the experimental part there was no help. Only the correction part there is a help. That's what I want to know. If I want to put the name, so that
Well,
credit belongs.
that depend. Look, my principle, if you ask, is if someone has contributed significantly in the sense that you will understand whether without that contribution that paper would have been incomplete or you couldn't have done that, something like that. Then you must put his or her name. Why not? But you should take permission of your supervisor. So supervisor is the person who can justify the extra names that you are providing. If you face some problem at some situation or you have to answer some question, then supervisors is the person who would justify, okay, this person, the name of this person is given due to this reason and it is justified. And even though this name is added, the work is primarily done by you, so because it is your PhD work, something like that. So always consult with your PhD supervisor. That's the best way to go.
Okay, sir.
Okay, thank you, sir, for your valuable discussions and your opinion. So actually, the Dr. T.S. Chandra from IIT Madras not able to join today because there is some storm in the Chennai and there is some power loss and the network connectivity problem in the IIT Madras. So, ma'am suggests that she will be present his presentation and the the opinions for this session about this session in the in month of December after the NSEM examination. So so we will end this session only up to this one speaker. So if you have any doubt or any queries till then, you just ask because we don't have the second speaker today.
Okay, you can ask if you have any other question, or otherwise we might end up today's session. And any of you, whoever is attending, you are welcome to write to me if you want. I would be happy to discuss further.
Hello, sir.
Yes.
Yeah, so myself, I'm a PhD student from mechanical department, first year. So my query is, this is specific to IIT Kanpur scenario only. If there is a faculty who is not being assigned as a co-guide, but if later on the candidate finds that if he could collaborate with him for a paper, it would actually add to his exposure in that area. Will that be possible in the academic framework?
Yeah, I think this would be possible. Yes, why not?
Okay, sir.
I mean, just speak to your supervisor. So he should be convinced that you need to, your work will be benefited from having another guide. Then why not? And he should, allow you to do that.
But sir, like my query was, because in academic framework there is a co-author, co-guide thing is there, no?
Yes.
Even if he is not a co-guide, but still can that collaboration on paper can work?
Yes, I mean that is even easier. So all you have to have is like all the parties agreeing to it.
Yes, sir.
Then then it is even easier. So I guess the benefit that the other supervisor or other professor gets is like the contribution in your paper, right? So
yes,
basically it will be expected perhaps that when you write a paper, then all 3 or 4 of you become a co-author.
Yes,
and I think most of the professors will be happy to do that. Why not?
Okay, thank you, sir.
Yes, any other question? Yes, so thank you so much. So I think we can stop here for this session. So again, from the Academics and Career Council team, I thanks again for your valuable presentation and the suggestions, your opinion and your guidance for all the PG students, also for the UG students. So thanks a lot, sir. Thank you.
Thanks a lot to all for keeping your patience, and I hope it has to some extent cleared your doubts in publication and all. And if you find any difficulty or if you have some queries, you are always welcome to get in touch with me. Okay. With
Okay.
that,
Thank you, sir. Yes, sir.
bye.
Yes, sir. Yes. Yes. Now I'm end the meeting.